and the loftiness of man shall be bowed down, and the haughtiness of man shall be made low, and the Lord alone shall be exalted in that day, and the idols shall he utterly abolish, and they shall go to the holes of the rocks, to the caves of the earth, for fear of the Lord, for the glory of his majesty, when he arises to shake terribly the earth.
Alright, good morning, welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. Just when I could have used an extra long song, I picked the one that's a little shorter than I want. Alright, we're continuing the epistle of... That's gotta make... sorry. I was probably not having a call. Really done? Yeah, my phone's off. Anyways, Romans 12, verse 1. I beseech you that... I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice. Just trying to turn my phone off here. Sorry about that. I don't usually have that happen, but I usually like to have it on because sometimes there's problems, and then the people who know I'm streaming can call me and let me know about those problems. But people who don't know I'm streaming sometimes call, and then they don't stop calling. That's very annoying. I apologize. All right. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. For I say through the grace given unto me, to every man that is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think soberly, according as God hath dealt to every man the measure of faith. No, I'm sorry. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's not every man. It's probably in Greek. Every man, or everyone. We'll see. I'll check that before we continue later. But I think, we talked about that verse. For as we have many members in one body, and all members have not the same office, so we, being many, are one body in Christ, and every one members one of another. Having then gifts differing according to the grace that is given to us, whether prophecy, let us prophesy according to the proportion of faith, or ministry, let us wait on our ministering, or he that teacheth on teaching, or he that exhorteth on exhortation, he that giveth, let him do it with simplicity. He that ruleth with diligence, he that showeth mercy with cheerfulness. Let love be without dissimulation. Abhor that which is evil. Cleave to that which is good. Be kindly affectioned one to another with brotherly love, in honor preferring one another. In honor preferring one another. Not slothful in business, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord. Rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, continuing instant in prayer, distributing to the necessity of the saints, given to hospitality. Bless them which persecute you, bless and curse not. I just want to make sure. So I had a thought. Oh, is it not working? No, it's fine. Bless and curse not. Where am I? Okay. Rejoice with them that do rejoice, and weep with them that weep. Be of the same mind one towards another. Mind not high things, but condescend to men of low estate. Be not wise in your own conceits. Recompense to no man evil for evil. Provide things honest in the sight of all men. If it be possible, as much as lieth in you, Live peaceably with all men. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath. For it is written, Vengeance is mine. I will repay, saith the Lord. Therefore, if thine enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him drink, for in so doing thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. We're right there. So, every man, I'm pretty sure, we talked about it, and like I said, that's within the context of the church. Now we're in 12. Yeah, every man, notice when I highlight it, it's just one word. It's to everyone. It should probably be better translated like that. Everyone, and then contextually, among us, I beseech you, therefore, brethren. This is how. Because only someone who has a measure of faith. We all have a measure, right? That's the whole point. That's what do you think the one talent was? They had that measure that was not enough, which was faith alone. Faith alone, being dead. Faith alone is dead. It's the idea of faith alone is a lie. There's no such thing. Faith is never alone. Faith, first comes the grace of God, and then comes faith, and then salvation. So there's no such thing as faith alone. We're saved by faith. I get what you mean. I understand. But I'm saying, faith never exists in a vacuum. That's why James said, show me your faith without your works, I'll show you my faith by my works. People who have faith without works are lying about their faith. They have their one talent and they've buried it into the earth somewhere because no one can tell where their faith is. It's like something. Oh yeah, I got it. Oh, trust me, it's back there somewhere. Anyway, there's no man. Especially when you consider, again, that doesn't mean you have to be like wearing Jesus buttons on your shirt and walk around with crosses embroidered on your hands. It means that at least, like I say, when I go around and I meet people for the first time, I'm not, if you're a Christian, I should not be struck, who is this heathen? That should not be what I think of when you encounter me. And it's like, well, how dare you be so judgmental? Well, I'm not being judgmental. It's what do you present to people? How do you display yourself to people? What are you? What is your life? What do they find? What are you doing? What are you about? How do you interact with people? How do you treat people? And when it gets down to that, it's like, yeah, it's, we have to represent our Lord in that. And so that's an important thing we have to consider. And to me, that's the all important. I don't need to have a Jesus bumper sticker on my car. Though there's nothing wrong with that, but I hope you drive well, because now, you're bringing that into judgment. I do notice the people with those on their car, they do drive well. Good for you. They do. I haven't been like, the guy's got a fish on there, and boy, he's driving like a moron. I can honestly say I've never really felt that way. So, and I think that maybe putting stuff on your car, maybe that helps people drive better. I don't know. I try to drive good all the time, because I can't afford problems with driving, like accidents. Be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed. We're on verse 4. So, and that's all part of this. We want to be transformed, and this is what we want to transform ourselves into. So every one of us has a measure of faith. We ought not be high-minded, and that's one of the big messages here. One, we have this glorious message of salvation, and the gospel is this very, having received it, it's like, wow, what an amazing gift to receive from God himself. And it's like, if you really believe that, you can get carried away with it. As far as it can, the faith of that can lead to a sort of high-mindedness, which, I don't know, if God is gracious to us, he demonstrates that to us. And I've always seen any tendency in myself to that. I've seen it in me. And I've worked over time to stamp it out more and more. Anyone who's followed me for a long time realizes Paul used to be more high-minded when he was younger. It's often an affliction of youth, to tell you the truth. The youth are easily afflicted with high-mindedness, and God love them. And I'm glad when I see youth grow up and they aren't high-minded, because it's not necessarily a requirement of growing up. I think it comes from a lack of parental attention in some ways. And parental attention isn't all disciplined and mean, and I hope I never give that impression. I always consider, I generally think in terms of soft power, backed up with an iron fist, truly, yes. But for the most part, through encouragement and gentle, instruction is the way to go, with also having very firm guardrails about behavior and stuff, but that are but allow for childhood silliness and stuff like that. You gotta allow for that kind of stuff. I believe in childhood silliness. I mean, you heard my ringtone, So for I say though the grace, for I say through the grace given me to every man that is. Why am I still on that verse? So as we are many members of one body, and all members have not the same office. We every part of our body has a different function. Basically, he's talking about the body, and we know that this is an analogy of the church. And the church is ecclesia, which means ecclesia, called out, a called out body of people. Like a chosen people. That's why we are the elect. All these terms apply to Christians. It's like technically what you are the elect, the saints, all these different terms. It's people who ultimately achieve, well, I mean, they attain to salvation. Achieve is not the right word. They attain salvation. That is what God brings to them. But we think of it often as an achievement, don't we? It's like, to be like it's something you have to achieve, like sainthood. Well, really, truly, there's nothing we achieve. Like if I obtain the things I desire in God, it's not an achievement; it's an acquirement. I mean, it's an inheritance which I have gotten from Him. That's how I look at it, and I labor to be worthy of that inheritance. That's my objective in Christ. Having passed from death to life a long time ago, through faith. And that's where you occupy yourself, in all the time you're given. So I have a position in God's grand plan. No one can say I don't. People want to say, you need to be this, you need to, a long time ago. I don't listen to those people. I'm part of all kinds of things. I have all kinds of accountability structure. It's like, also I keep myself in check instead of I was watching the other day on YouTube, and there's like they have these multi-level marketing things and seminars, and like I hope I should probably, I don't know, if you ever think or are tempted about any stuff like that, listen to people like CoffeeZilla and other people who investigate scams. I investigated these scams actually years ago, before the internet existed, like with multi-level marketing, because I saw friends getting involved in it, and I went and I was curious, and the whole thing just felt like this religious, because I was way into the Bible at the time, and not at all like, to me it was like they were like making money, and I was like, who gives a crap? I'll come, sure. I came, and because I was like, I'm not gonna spend any money on this. I spent all my money on Bibles and stuff. I didn't want to waste it on trying to get rich. I was trying to earn true riches. That's how I looked at it. And so I was immune to this stuff. And I walked, but it felt like when I saw the preachers on TV being these snake oil salesmen, it was total. And I was like, how are these people? I was like, dude. And I investigated it through all this, like, whatever. Anyways, like I actually paid for it to be done. I didn't really do much except obtain some records and stuff. And, I knew it was shady as heck. And anyways, there was actually a similar thing, like, grow your ministry and all this stuff. And I was like, if I got involved in something like that, I would rather put a bullet in my head than go to some sort of thing where they try to teach me how to monetize my content. I seriously, when I think about that, it makes me happy. Like I'd rather work out. I'd rather do my taxes, or or talk to the IRS. I'm thinking of those things I would, things people don't like to do, that I certainly don't like to do. I'd rather clean out the chicken house. You know what I mean? I'd rather have the basement overflow. I'd rather my septic back up and have to deal with that. You know, than find myself seeking that kind of advice from dolled up women showing up. They grow your ministry and business, and then I get it. I get it. There's nothing entirely wrong with It's like, whatever. Let's monetize the house of God. I don't know. Part of me wants to take a whip to every one of them. You know what I mean? Because it's like, stop. You're flack. You're making a lot of noise. Is the way I look at it. You guys are all making a lot of noise. Let's see how we can whatever. Hey, you want to give them your money? Throw your money at them. I don't know. What is it? It's like, we'll pay to coach you. It's like, they have their reward. They have their reward. If I can help you without getting anything from you, I would be much happier. I mean, obviously, I would rather have. See, I believe in multi-level marketing too, but I believe in reverse. I want to make you my debtor, and then you have to go make other people your debtors. Without, you don't have to give me any money. I want you to go and do good to other people as I've done good to you. That's your debt. That's what you owe me. Instead of giving me money, you got to go and do better. You know what I mean? That's what I would ask. It's just because, I don't know, the sleaziness of the whole business just makes me sick. Anyways, but we have all of, I do believe in believers. Even people who are out there, hey, if you labor in the things of God, you deserve to earn money in it. I do believe that. They that labor in the gospel should live of the gospel. If it's a full-time gig for you, serving people, you certainly have the right to be able to eat and to live of that service. So I also put that sincere service, like I talk about all the time. Even though I was there coming down hard on, I'm like, I don't know, just monetizing my podcast. It's like, oh, come on. There are some things that are so awesome. It's much better to just give them away for free. Like if there was a way to make everybody rich, I would love to tell you all about it. And I would not charge you a dime for it because because it would be awesome. We could all know about this. And, and there are ways to get rich, and there are people who will actually tell you for free. It's all free out there. If you want to make some money, it's all free. You don't have to pay. Anyone who's charging you $10,000 to teach you, it's a lie. No. Maybe a minimal fee. Someplace, like when someone's like, $100 to make you commit to coming or whatever. I don't know. There are some, there's always, for rental of the thing. I mean, just things that are reasonable where you're buying tickets to some event that it's like something within, like I said, within the range of $100 or so. It's like, but anything getting up to $800-900 for coaching, give me a break. There are people who know better who you can listen to who will not charge you a dime. So we being many are one body in Christ, every one members one of another. So we all have our place. We all have things we got to do. That's why I encourage you to find your place and do it. Because, whatever that is, whatever your vocation is, whatever you do, do it with your might. It doesn't necessarily, like I said, even in the way, I've had people, when I was younger, I remember people telling me, they felt like God was with me because of things in the way I did things. Okay. I don't mean to, whatever, but like you might encounter that if you live right, when you live right, when you try to do right, you don't want to always try. It's not that you want to announce it, but sometimes when you do it with people, as far as when you treat people right, especially if they're themselves kind of cynical, like they're like stunned. It just simple honesty. I never thought it was like big deals, but I never was like thought it was worth tooting my horn over because it was just little things. But some people really suffer in a world that is very corrupt. I mean, a lot of you who are believers. You come from godly homes, or at least somewhat, where there's faith. I mean, you may have a good critique, where it's like that, that their beliefs are not right, and also that there's a superficiality or whatever. But still, I do think, I give people the benefit of the doubt, unless they're exceedingly odious, and that's what the scriptures. Basically, that's a standard I find in the scriptures, is that when we talk about who is in the church and who's out of the church, well, there are certain people who Paul is like, before I've come, I've even judged this. Whoever's done such a thing, what should happen? They need to be cast out of the church, essentially. And of course, that de facto removal from a particular gathering is merely the earthly manifestation of what is truly going on, which is there's ungodliness, which can't be part of it. Now, it never really is, but is often among us. Like I said, they go out from us because they were not of us. But they are often among us, that they which are approved may be made manifest. And I'm referring to different New Testament scriptures, which I don't have the references for now, but you can puzzle those out. So it is often a little, the state of the church, as being one, is often something people feel very, it doesn't look like it really is, right? Just like Christ doesn't seem like he's actually reigning, even though he truly is. Because it is not fully accomplished. Yet, the church is one, because we have the unity of the Spirit, because the Spirit is that which makes us his body, that which unifies us, and where we can be considered one body. It's not merely, we're not one body, the way a Roman legion was one body. Paul doesn't compare it to one, we are like a Roman legion or something like that, fighting together, marching side by side, and one with one purpose. And one, people will talk about being one in terms of purpose. But we are one in terms of the right hand doesn't necessarily know what the left hand is doing. We are one in terms of all things flow from the head, and we are merely a part, like a cell. I mean, like, does your immune system really understand that it's your immune system? You know what I mean? And I have more in common with a macrophage in the, a white blood cell in my immune system than I do perhaps, with a thinking sentient being, in terms of what Christ represents in this sense of, through the Spirit, we are the body of Christ. We are his active presence in the world. And we make up his body on earth. Everyone members of one another. This is not something we have to work on or organize or think about. It just exists. Much like, a massive organism. Except it's a spiritual organism. It's not about, again, it's not, churches get built and stuff. And little cults form, and you get heresies and all that stuff. Just like the tree. It's a big tree, and lots of birds come and lodge in it, and they do lots of nasty things. That's the way I look at that one. But it's big, and there's different gifts according to the grace that is given us. Whether prophecy, let us prophesy according to the proportion of faith. The thing is, in this big body, you understand, it's like no one of us can be incredibly important. People will try to say, people, I think they want to encourage me to do more. Well, not to do more, but to be encouraged, I guess, and I'm always trying to be encouraged. I have encouragement from people, plenty of it, to continue. So there's no danger of that ending, I wouldn't say no danger, but there's no foreseeable danger, is what I would say. There's no foreseeable danger except my death, That would put an end to it. But, and of course, other things, the Lord give us grace and we will do what we can do. Right? We all have different gifts. I do not, and in different ministries, and though I do not approve of many big ministries, God hasn't made me their judge as far as to condemn them. and to bring them down, other than that I speak the truth. And if the truth brings them down, because I can't go around listening to everybody and talking about, I just come and preach the truth. And if you hear the truth and you know the truth and you hear other people lying, you know the difference. And then in that, they're already brought down in my mind, because those who have ears to hear know the truth. And the liars are already brought down to hell because we know the truth. And they have not, the light shined in darkness, and the darkness could not overcome. They can't. So according to the proportion of faith, what is that proportion? Is that really the word proportion? Like proportional? I want to see what the Greek word is. Measure of faith. We'll go down a bit. Simplicity, he that know a little bit further. There we go. Proportion of faith. Analogia. Proportion. That's interesting. It's like analog. I wouldn't understand it in terms of analog, but let's see. Proportion, measure, or analogy. The English word analogy is derived from this term. Analogia, reasoning word, from completing a process, completing a process. Interesting. Properly analogous reasoning, moving from one point of a comparison up to the other. The analogia of the Spirit, very interesting. No, according to the analogia of faith. So that means, what, because faith is always an upward thing. We are lifted up by it, I suppose, and that which we are proportioned, what is portioned to us of faith. Well, we know that it's given out as a portion. To some is given more, others less. And faith is not entirely to be considered just like, okay, how much faith do I have? It also refers to the gifts and calling of God. Because, again, like whether prophecy, whether teaching, whether ministering, all those things, that's what he's talking about. It's the proportion of faith. It's more towards ministry. It's more towards teaching. It's more towards prophecy. It's more towards exhortation. People are going to have different things they're towards. That's why I always think the cookie cutter model of the church, there's some function for it, obviously. I don't think that, we have to gather within our communities and stuff. That would seem natural, and of course needful. I don't have anything against gathering, but the format has become so traditionalized that I think we have mistaken the format for what the actual thing is supposed to be and what it's supposed to do. And it's become more of just a simple weekly lecture and music. Which a weekly lecture and music is something that, it was good to listen to a lecture once a week and have some music. I got nothing against that. I used to like going to church every week. Honestly, I sometimes would go twice a week when I could. It was, in the evening on Wednesday, I'd show up sometimes, right? And I like it. It's fun to be among people who believe, especially people who really believe, and to engage in those things. But, is that the sum total of what it means to be a Christian? Well, no, obviously not. Any more than just confessing the name of Jesus and believing a set of facts as like this mere faith. I don't want to say mere faith as opposed to whatever. C.S. Lewis said about mere faith. I didn't mean to reference him because I haven't read his whatever he wrote about that. I've just heard of that term. But I didn't mean that. I mean false faith. Faith that is merely said to exist, but is not actually something that they don't really believe. They've confessed him, but their tongue is lying. Their heart has said that, the heart is deceitful above all things. I know this, that in my heart, there was unbelief. You know what I mean? It was possible. And doubt, just like in the apostles. But I've confronted that. And so it must be in the heart of every man. Or, well, maybe not every man, right? We all have a different proportion of faith. Some people have very great faith. And I hope that, if you had faith and doubt not, there are so many things that are possible to you. But you have to understand what to look for. And I would say, look at what we're about to look at. That's what you're looking for. So we all have this. We all got to do it according to what we've been given. Prophecy, there's things to be said. Prophecy can be, people think of it as predicting or thing, or I went to a church once and it was a prophet. He was like doing cold readings on people, like I see words around you and all this weird stuff. To me, that's not a prophet. That's a false prophet. And I saw him as a false prophet from the beginning. And I just did, and it's like, yep, I didn't like it. And because it's just that doesn't strike me as prophecy. You can't go around forcing whatever. I'm not here to judge. Well, there were other things. There were reasons why I forgot. It's a long time. Anyways, but someone came calling themselves a prophet, and it's like, well, he didn't. It's like, why are you declaring yourself a prophet? That's the weird part. I would aspire to such a thing also. It's like, and we all prophesy. We all may prophesy, we should say. Which means, because ultimately, in the Old Testament sense, the prophet was the man who spoke for God. And as a Christian, you have the Holy Spirit in you, so we can all prophesy. That's just right. But not all have the gift or the calling to do that. Like where that's their focus. Same thing with ministering. We all must serve and minister to one another. Our ministry there, the Greek word is going to be what? Diakonia, like from where we get the word deacon. And it means like a household servant, not like a slave. Like here it comes from the idea of waiting at a table in a wider sense, service or administration. Table waiting. I think of my wife as a great example of someone who's very dedicated to service. Serving others and literally in the sort of providing the food for people to eat, because otherwise, people need to eat. It's like, be filled and be blessed. It's like, but there's nothing provided. So that is part of life. And joyfully serving others is part of what it means to be a Christian. Whether it's in whatever calling you've been called in according to the proportion of the faith given you. In our lifetime, over our lifetimes, I've seen this also, that our faith, we can go from faith to faith. I look at it now, it's like when I was 19, I started taking my faith seriously, very seriously. And there had been other milestones, perhaps even earlier moments when I had thought about God and thought about the those subjects, deeply on my own, just on my own musings alone, And so at 19, I kind of had a transformative experience. Mostly just nothing mystical. Just mentally transforming because of, well, it was somewhat mystical. I've described it, right? But not exactly mystical. It was just, it was drug induced. I thought I was going to die, and then I prayed and things cleared up and I felt better. And after that, I decided I was going to start reading my Bible and looking to God instead of to the things I'd been looking to up to that point in my life that I thought would bring satisfaction. And then I went along a time, and then when I was 31, just events came to pass in my life, and then I received the Holy Spirit, which I'd been seeking but not receiving previously. And I've talked about that many times, but the point is, it changed then. I changed in that. And I think I can have even further changes, big changes. Our life, when we accomplish one thing and we are faithful in it, we can move on to something else, and we are given greater challenges. I definitely believe that because that is how my life has progressed. I started when I was 19. I'm 49 now. I think I said 40 years in one study a while ago. That's 30 years, Paul. 30 years. Anyways, but I was seeking the Lord even when I was a young boy too. So I know because I remember certain things that I thought about and that I considered and was mindful of. I remember my first time I asked my dad, what happens when you die? I was very young. And the answer he told me was funny because he told me, you go to meet your maker. And I think I've mentioned before, I had a dream then that I fell into quicksand. I didn't ask what you die. I said, what happens when you fall into quicksand? He says, you go to meet your maker. I fell into the quicksand in my dream as my parents watched and smiled and waved. And then, fear of abandonment, I suppose, right? And then I go down in the quicksand, which was kind of scary. And then I fall down into this lab, and there was like a mad scientist in there who was apparently my maker. Not a mad scientist, but he was kind of like this old man. I think of him now as a mad scientist because he was sort of like, and he showed me how he made a tree and stuff. He was an old man. I thought of him, it was a lab. That's why I thought of him as a mad scientist. I don't know why I say mad, I guess, because his hair was crazy. That's why, because he had this white hair that was just like Einstein, sort of. But it didn't look like Einstein. I don't remember the man's face. But anyways, I was thinking about these things. That's kind of a silly, childish dream. I look at that as a childish dream, but it's a funny thing. Okay, so we go from faith to faith. We can have a small ministry and it becomes a big ministry. You can have, and there's times for big ministry. I don't know what it's a big church. There's room for lots of ministering. I know everyone wants to have some big ministry. I don't know what that impulse is. I want to have a deep ministry. I want my ministry to go deep down to the core and not be, I look at it as you can have a superficial big thing, or you can really have, or I don't know. Because like I said, as soon as you start getting bigger, one of the reasons I took down I used to have a thing for people to donate, but whenever I get a donation, it make me feel horrible. I'd feel horrible. I'd feel like this pressure and this, and I didn't like it. I don't feel horrible about all donations, but especially the larger ones. There was never anything more than like $500. That was the biggest thing anyone ever sent me ages ago. And I paid taxes on all that money just so no one gets all weird. It's like, yes, I always claim it. I always needed it. So whatever. But it's no big deal. I don't know. I guess when it talks about ministry, I can't help but think about all the financial stuff. But like I said, pastors are worthy of their hire if they're doing a good job serving the community and the people who live there, counseling and working and being diligent, not busybodies, but but truly doing the work. Exhorting is, what would you call it? I guess it's one of those words that you feel like you understand, you can use in a sentence. Right? But what is the technical definition of it? How would we define exhortation? Ex and hort are in there, and it's kind of like to talk. I'm going to think of it's like to talk out, essentially. But we would probably think talk up would probably be better, at least in the way we think in English. But technically, I think that's probably the basic idea. Exhortation. I'd like to almost think of it as like talk, even though I know. Oh, it's paraklesis. Never mind. It's not ex at all. That must be like the Roman derivation. I don't know. Because I'm not a linguist. A calling to one's aid, encouragement, or comfort. Calling to aid, paraklesis. It's paraklesis. See, sometimes the English word does not give you an insight into the Greek one at all. Properly a call. Urging done by someone close beside. It's the one who stands beside, like a companion, and urges us forward. It's a lot, when people talk about the idea of coaching, that's what this brings to my mind. Also, this paraklesis is the same idea behind the idea of the Holy Spirit as the comforter. You may hear people say he's the paraclete. And you can see some of the way it's translated, consolation even, and comfort. So exhortation, I do think it's comfort, but it is comfort in the form of, in the Christian sense, of telling people the things they need to hear to get them on the right path and help them, follow Christ. I try to do a lot of that. He that giveth, let him do it with simplicity. We can be real complicated in the way we give. Oh, I want to give. And I know people are like this, man. They don't want to give unless they can get something out of it. And I understand. Hey, that's not really giving, is it? One moment. When we give, it should not be with any sort of... I wonder if simplicity has anything to do with the idea of a plot. I'm curious. I should have... I just want to see what's simplicity here. Simplicity. I'm having fun with the word study today, because these are interesting words. With simplicity, haplotis. Singleness. Simplicity. Okay. Where's the root of it? From not fold. Properly singleness, without folds, like a piece of cloth unfolded. Without creases and corners and kinks and bends. It's like, well, if you want, I'll give it to you, but here are the criteria. It's like, hey, that's what loans are, and that's also what trades is for. There's trade, and if you really want to give, it has to be done. We have to let things go. I don't like to let things go, but I try to, when I give them, to genuinely let it be given, and do it cheerfully. It is to truly give. It is challenging to do it cheerfully, because to give truly, you must give up. You must lose something. You can't. You may get. You will get something spiritually from it, but you can't. I don't want that to depend on the gratitude of the other person. Even, you know what I mean? That can be very gratifying, but to do good expecting nothing, no recognition, no thanks. That's another, even thanks, because if you give and then you're offended because you're not thanked for it, you didn't give it. You didn't really give it. Now, people should be thankful. They should express their thanks. It is good and right, and it helps encourage people to give when they're thanked. But those who give with true simplicity need to understand that is we give and we just give. You got to let it go. That's why, like I said, that's sometimes why when I feel giving coming on, I feel apprehensive, because I try to give without that. And I'm not a perfect person who just always likes and cheerfully gives things up. I don't. It's like I'm not fully made in his image yet. And the best way, how do you get that? Well, you have to practice it. Give. It's like, and give beyond what you can bear, what you think you can bear. And then when you have to give less, it's easier. I guess is what I would say. About all I could advise on that one. Because it's like, and maybe it's easy to give, good things to the people you love. I'm not talking about that. That's easy. I'm talking about giving. He that ruleth with diligence. Yeah, when you're in charge of stuff, do a good job. I think that our past couple of years, all those who are Christian, there was a Christian involved at a high level, helping the government basically cause all the churches, in my mind, to go astray. And that's, I don't know what to think about that precisely, but I as far as I'm concerned, yeah, they were diligent in their rule. And on the term, I think of diligence as like really being, making sure before when you impose things on people, you better be sure about this. You better be really sure. Because it could mean people's lives. It has meant people's lives. It is still meaning people's lives, and it will yet mean people's lives. People are still poisoning themselves. And the effects are cumulative for those who keep going back and getting more and more. He that showeth mercy with cheerfulness. Yeah, because when you're being kind to people, it should not be. I don't know. That seems an odd one for me for him to say that, because it's like, I'm always delighted to be merciful, I think. Though I've never felt that grudging. Like the last time I tried to show mercy to someone who didn't deserve it, I was very pleased. But on the other hand, I guess when I think about that situation, there was a complicated. Yeah, I'm still not sure about it. But yeah, I could see how, like, if someone had wronged me personally, you know what I mean, or I don't know, because I get, when it's me personally, I find it actually, that's the easiest that's where I feel most obligated to show mercy. You know what I mean? Like, when someone has wronged me, I feel it's pretty, at least, I don't know where I am, maybe this is not everybody. I don't know where I am spiritually. It doesn't seem like a big deal for me to show mercy to someone who has wronged me, myself. If it is merely me. When it starts getting to they hurt my family and stuff, or strangers. Like when it's my family, it's weird because I feel like, okay, on some level, I have an interest here, and so I can be merciful on some, but do I have the right? Well, I don't. You know what I mean? But then what about a stranger? Someone who harms a stranger. What right do I have to show mercy to someone who has harmed a stranger? And I suppose I don't have any right. That they sort of must fall under the law. That's like ruling with diligence. It's like you got to follow. There are something we have. Societal rules, which are usually not as high standards as the laws of God, for the most part. I mean, like, to go to jail, you have to break significant, you have to do things significantly bad. Or at least be convicted of doing things that were bad, right? Maybe he didn't do it, right? But mercy, we don't all, mercy, there's a lot of small mercies in life. The small mercies, give them, to be kind to the people you love. Don't be cruel to them and short with them and take out your bad, having a bad day on them. These are all things that those are all personal advice from experience, but a lot of people do it. Not we all, but many of us probably have. When you're in a bad mood, who feels it most but the ones you love the most? And I've often said that, I don't know if I've said it here, but I've certainly said it in my relationships that, that's because we trust those who we love. We feel safe. And so we do things that cross lines that we shouldn't cross. And so sometimes we need mercy because we've transgressed. But from the beginning, we should have shown mercy in realizing it's like, why should someone else be punished? I mean, it's a sin. It's not even mercy. You know what I mean? It's just a sin to punish others for your own misery. He that exhorteth, or he that, are we doing exhortation? Okay, let love be without dissimulation. Fake love. Great, I believe that is, let's see if there's anything special about dissimulation. Love, and what kind of love is it? Let's see. It is agape. And this word is a little longer, so I can't read it. Anupokritos. unfeigned. Or with upokritos is hypocrisy. Upokrites. Upokritos is unhypocritical. So that's what that means. Unhypocritical love. Hypocrisy in Greek has the idea of putting on a show or an act. Like here you see it says a put on, describing behavior as opposed to that which has a hidden agenda. If we looked up, let's see, where's a derivative of hypokrinomai, which is to answer or reply, to answer on a stage. The word krino is like judge and upo is under, and so like the parts of it don't necessarily break down and give you the meaning of the word. The idea of hypocrisy comes from the idea of acting false. That's why I say fake love. We all kind of know what that looks like, and so that is, that's a great thing. It's like showing the outward, visible signs of love. Yet without the genuine, love is what does good, not what makes feel good. And kisses and kind words often make you feel good. Words that seem kind, because sometimes kind words can hurt, because the truth can be a kind cruelty. Meaning telling someone the truth that they need to know, but that knowing is going to pain them, but they have to know. It's like, we can't keep it from them. It's the only kindness you can do. But in so doing, we always want to do it with gentleness and try to be gentle. And it's one of the things we're called to, is to not be rough. This is one of my problems. I'm rough around the edges. I am a rough customer. Sort of. I don't want to exaggerate that too much. I could be rougher. I could be smoother. I never think I've never been the best at anything. I've never been the worst at anything. I've just been like a B+ at all things. Whether it's the gifts or whether it's the sins. It's like just a very versatile B+. Thank you, sir. Just need to put more effort in for that A, right? I do want an A from the Lord. I hope to bring him gold. Or maybe something better, right? What's better than gold? The God medal. Agape, the idea of love, is the idea of benevolent love. Love that seeks good for the other, as opposed to, it's not just, not as opposed to, but as differentiated from erotic love or the fondness, such as philia, like expressed in the concept of Philadelphia, the love of the brethren. So that love should be without fakery. Meaning we don't want to put on. Love needs to be tempered with the truth, and like I said, with what does good. Loving people means doing good to them, seeking their benefit, seeking to raise them up. That's how you love people. And sometimes that involves rebuke, like we call it tough love. That's part of not dissimulating. And sometimes love has a little harder face. But that hard face, we should be conscious of the fact this is the hard side of love. And therefore, we ought to be the more gentle, knowing that this is the hard side of love. When you're on the soft side of love, it's easy to be careless and free and not think too much about it. Because that's the easy side. It's fun to just be kindly affectioned one to another and to have a good time and to laugh, and those things are good. But they should not stand in when there are real problems that need to be addressed. That should not become a cover for something that's dark and disgusting going on. Or disgusting may not be the right word, but dark and corrupt, perhaps, or whatever. I don't want to. Why am I going for corrupt and disgusting? I mean more like I'm thinking more of like someone's having trouble or they're or I guess the corruption would go in there, but I mean, like they having, I don't know, why do people fake love? I've never been good at it. I've been more of a like Paul, smile. You need to show more outward affection, you know, and not, don't be so cold. I guess I'm not really that cold. I think, but certainly not towards my wife. But I can be a bit, so I'm not. I don't have a tendency towards dissimulation in love. I don't like to pretend with people. If I don't like people, I generally let them know, and I'm more guilt. Like I said, when I talk about tough love and how you ought to be careful with your tough love, that's advice I've learned from personal experience, because I've learned that not because necessarily because I thought I was engaging in tough love, just from being tough and then seeing people call stuff tough love that is just abuse. I know abuse when I see it. And I've studied it, and especially from because of verbal ideas and understanding how I myself was, without thinking, being cruel and such. And that's the thing. We have to abhor that which is evil. When I see cruelty in myself, I abhor that. That's when my tongue lies, I'm disgusted at the abomination that is in my mouth. We must abhor that. Cleave to that which is good. Let's see if cleave is cut things in two like a cleaver. I think it's weird because I think they mean cling. Why does it say cleave? What is the Greek word there? Maybe that's an archaic meaning of the word cleave. Cleave to. It means to glue. Isn't that interesting? And I'm guessing, if you look up the word cleave in English, and I'm gonna do it because I don't know why. I'm just really interested in this stuff because it means to split. See, it means to split or divide, right? But if I go for where's the archaic way? Come on, tell me there was like some old way. So wait a second. Sever, splinter, divide. Origin, Germanic, Old English, Germanic origin related to Dutch and German kleben. That's so fascinating to me because, wait a second, okay, it has a totally different definition. It means to stick fast to. Look at that. Rose's mouth was dry and her tongue was cleaving to the roof of her mouth. Sure. Adhering strongly to a pursuit of belief. Part of why we cleave to sports. Isn't that interesting? So I wasn't aware. And that origin. So the old is Germanic Old English. And this is West Germanic. This comes from the same word. I don't know. Okay, whatever. It doesn't make any sense to me, but okay. I mean, again, it means that, okay. Cleave to that which is good. I've heard it and I've used it that way, but I don't know. I didn't know that was the second definition of cleave. I always think of that as split in two, and I know this is here. I never looked it up till now, I think. Be kindly affection one to another with brotherly love. Philadelphia, brotherly fondness. That's a phile is, like I said, is the idea of fondness. It is a sense of, not in the sense of, agape is this like active of loving someone in a benevolent sense. Philia is more about the fondness one feels towards one another. And eros, of course, refers to erotic love, and there are different terms. People say we have one word for love in English. No, we don't. We don't call all those things love. What we do is we've used the word love too much in English. We use it for everything. You know what I mean? We've used it as a euphemism for the sex act. You know what I mean? So it's just been watered down is what happened. We didn't have one word for love. We used love for 50 different concepts. That's the problem. We have all kinds of other words, though. We got plenty of them. All right. Cleave to that which is good. I know cleave to. I just whatever. Be kindly affectionate one to another with brotherly love, and honor preferring one another. You have to prefer others over yourself. You know, being kind one to another, and that's part of what it means to be a Christian. You know, Jesus himself, washing the feet of his disciples, setting the example of service. You know, there's an impulse in man to be served, but Christ said, if you want to be great, you must serve. Because I will. I am. You call me Lord and Master, and this is true, for so I am. But he that will be greatest among you must become your servant. Must be servant of all, because the Son of Man was servant of all. He served for all. He served on the cross. He served for our sins. So that's why our reasonable service is the offering of our bodies as a living sacrifice, knowing that God will raise us up again. Preferring one another. Do I want to look at that? I do. Giving us fervent. Oh, there we go. Preferring. I can't quite read it. I like the big words. Oh, I need the phonetic. Whenever they put, that right there, that's a little bit tough for me, right? Proegeomai. To go before as a leader. Interesting. I lead onward by example. Go forward to prefer. Proegeomai. Before. To lead the way, passing on the right example, modeling, exhibiting the proper behavior, so others can follow the one going first. So I'm a little confused there. Give preference to one another. Well, then that means let them go first, right? Put them first. It means to lead by example, which we should do, right? We should lead by example. That's what leaders should do. They should lead by example, being a good example, right? Not just making others do things that they themselves cannot or will not do. But this means to promote others, to put them in front, in the sense of make them the leader. Not necessarily literally. Yeah, I mean, because you don't necessarily, leaders can't make people leaders who shouldn't be leaders, right? But as a leader, I can put the interests of other people ahead of my own. That's the idea. And I make it as though they're first. Because he's trying to contradict, I think, something in human nature that says, well, put the leader first. The leader has to go first. He's the most important. And that's how a lot of human society has run and was run, especially in the time of the Romans. I mean, especially in all time, really. And even to this day, there's a tendency towards, the person at the top takes all the rewards. And they think it is presumed to be their right. But among us, no. Prefer others before yourself. That means they go first. That's one of the things I remember when I heard a Christian. I don't have time for that story. Never mind. Okay, so let's see where we are. And honor preferring one another. I'll say we'll start out with verse 11. Not slothful in business. All right. Thank you for joining me today. I'll be back again tomorrow, Lord willing. I expect. And until then. Thank you. Sorry.
And the loftiness of man shall be bowed down, and the haughtiness of man shall be made low. shall be exalted in that day, and the idols shall he utterly abolish, and they shall go to the holes of the rocks, to the caves of the earth, for fear of the Lord, for the glory of his majesty when he riseth.